Good to have you too.
Well, we'll be chatting more to Frida and Daniel about Gorilla, their new series about racial tensions in 70s London. And whilst making it, they were lucky enough to have advice from someone who was at the very centre of the black rights movement in Britain. That man was broadcaster, journalist and civil rights activist Darcus Howe, who sadly died earlier this week at the age of 74. Here is Farrukh Dhondy, Darcus's closest friend, with his memories of a truly inspirational figure.
This government is not going to take up their responsibility unless they see people on the street.
I know Darcus Howe. I hate to use the past tense. For 45 years, he was a dear and very close friend. I first met him in Marble Arch Tube Station. Darcus, it seems, had been selling a newspaper that they ran. He came up to us and said, "Would you buy a copy?" So my friend bought one copy, and I said, "I'll share his." And he said, "Will you share the same jail sentence?" And we thought, wow, that's tough talk. Of course, we had no idea at the time that he would become a leader of the black struggle in Britain.
In 1969, Darcus worked at a Notting Hill restaurant, which had become a hub for the West Indian community. Its popularity prompted numerous futile raids by the local police force.
Darcus's notoriety, or his career as a public figure, began when he was engaged in a protest against police harassment of the building behind me, which was at the time the Mangrove Restaurant.
What our objective is today, what is going to continue to be, is a concerted, determined attempt to prevent any infringement on our rights.
Some arrests were made, including that of Darcus Howe. Darcus went to court and defended himself against charges of affray and conspiracy and assault on the police and all sorts of things.
The Mangrove 9 trial drew a lot of attention and exposed many to the charisma and intellect of Darcus Howe. It left a lasting impression on a young Diane Abbott, today Shadow Home Secretary.
I had heard of Darcus before attending the trial, and I'd heard of the Mangrove 9 because it was the most important political case of the time. But I went to the trial and actually saw him for the first time, and he was a very charismatic figure.
He completely shone out as a star. Sometimes I felt that I was listening to a black preacher in a black church rather than a defendant in an Old Bailey trial.
You have to say, my power is not only the power to defend myself in court, but the power of the population to defend itself by taking a collective action against the power structure of this country.
The amazing thing about it is they were talking about police brutality and racism for the first time. Darcus defended himself and he won. And it just had a seismic effect. And from then on, Darcus was at the epicentre of black politics.
In 1973, Darcus became editor of a pioneering political magazine called Race Today. He moved the offices to the centre of the black movement, Railton Road in Brixton.
It's all completely transformed. Darcus's desk would be there against a wall. There was no glass. We would sit around when we were talking about copy, and we just discuss things for the next issue, and usually about activation somewhere, about what action one was going to take. It was a dynamic, active collective. It wasn't just a magazine collective.
A 1981 house fire in South London killed 13 young black people. Many believed it was a racially motivated attack and accused the police of lacking urgency in their investigation.
For Darcus, the New Cross fire and him being called in to lead the protest against the police inactivity over the causes of the fire was possibly his last street fighting moment.
Despite his controversial profile, Darcus made the move into TV in the early 1980s, and an impressive career in broadcasting ensued.
It hasn't been a good week for black men, certainly not for me.
Darcus's television career not only expanded his profile, it also changed his stance, I think, to an extent, because he knew that here was an instrument through which a message could be transmitted to the whole of the country, and he did it very successfully. Notting Hill, these streets, Brixton, will always remind me of my dear departed friend.
Hang in there, brothers.
Two incredibly remarkable gentlemen. Thank you very much to Farrukh, and of course our thoughts go out to Darcus's family and friends. Frida, you met both of them, didn't you? Darcus and
I did.
and of course Farrukh. They were consultants on Gorilla.